Thank you all for joining us today. So, how was that, guys? Yeah, that last sequence really gets you. I'll start with Noah. In my introduction, I was talking about how your films always feel like very personal. And I think that comes from you being a writer director who has a real eye for specificity. Um, Even this film is full of really specific details that accumulate into these portraits of people. And I was curious if there was one detail, image, experience that you started with while writing the script with Emily Mortimer.
Well, I actually had the last line I wrote down a few years ago, and I said it to Greta, and she said, "If you can write and make a movie that justifies that last line, that would be amazing." Uh, so I set out to do that.
Started backwards.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I think, and then thinking about an actor and how we're all actors in our lives, and performance and identity, and so that it all kind of went from there, and then took a lot of time and work.
And what was the process of co-writing it with Emily Mortimer like?
Amazing. I mean, I'd had a lot of ideas and pieces of scenes and things that I'd written, but I felt there was something, because it's a kind of internal journey for Jay's character. Something about that made me feel like I wanted to actually externalize it more and not just sit there myself with all of these thoughts and feelings. So I told her the story one night at dinner, and she was just so smart about it and funny, and she is, and brilliant, and so I slept on it, and I called her the next day and I said, "Do you want to write this with me?" And then we just went from there. And the thing that I just always think is that the way I best describe it is I mean, she's an amazing collaborator and writer, and also, like, I like myself when I'm with her, and
Very
and
important.
so yeah, I would like entertaining her and trying to entertain her, and then and things that, and I felt like it was inspiring and a pleasure. And again, it went on for years, but it was I mean, I think she's one of a kind.
Yeah, and she's an actor and writer, so I'm sure she brought a lot, more to the script from
Yeah,
her
and she knows the
experiences.
world too. Obviously, she also, I mean, she's um, had spent a lot of time in Italy also. So I had like imagined. I mean, I know Italy a bit, but I would have all these locations that were just sort of like total fabrications, and she would help me say like, well, actually, if you're gonna, um, uh, so, but yeah, I mean, and of course, I was like, I'd be a fool not to cast her as well.
Um, I want to move on to George, who I know, was on your and Emily's minds when you were writing this movie, and of course, the fact that George, we know your work and your career and your legacy adds all these layers to watching the movie. But I'm really interested in how you are not like Jay Kelly, because in the
Same height.
in the press notes, I was reading them, and you said, Jay Kelly became famous young, and you didn't.
Yes.
You only became famous in your mid
Well, now I
30s.
think of it young because it's 33 seems very young to me.
Younger than
Yes.
when you did, and so you kind of have a different experience of stardom than this character does. And
Sure. I mean, don't you? I mean, we've all met people who got famous young. It's a difficult thing to do. I think if things had worked out when I was 21 years old, and suddenly was starring in films and things that wasn't really happening, I was very upset about. I would have been shooting crack into my forehead. It's like, it's really not. You're not designed to say jump and have people older than you say how high. And you really need some time under your legs. My Aunt Rosemary was a very famous singer, and she was a very famous singer at 19. She was on the cover of Time magazine, and then she did White Christmas as an actress, and boy, there was nothing she touched that couldn't be great. And then rock and roll came in, and women in popular music were gone. At the time when she started, 9 of the top 10 singers were women. And then Elvis came along 4 years later, and there wasn't a woman in the top 25. And so she was on the road singing and came back, and they were like, "What happened to you?" And she's like, I'm done at 24 years old. And she was done. And she handled it poorly. She, got very drunk and did a lot of drugs and did everything stupid and had to wait for about 40 years to have her career turn around again. And my lesson that I got from that was to pay attention to how little this has to do with you, which you learn when you're older, because when you're young, you think you're really smart. And how much it is about circumstance and beautiful script and director and extraordinary actors, and those kind of things. So my character in general was a guy who got famous much younger and was pampered in all the ways that you shouldn't be. And that whole a Cocker Spaniel out in the Serengeti is very true. It's like they don't know how to handle themselves. I mean, I cut tobacco for a living, for $3 an hour. So I got a different experience than he did.
Can I just say something very quickly about George's performance that I think
We have time for one more question.
Yeah, he's gonna. You may just need to hold him down so he doesn't leave the stage. But because the movie is about somebody who is essentially, certainly for the first half of the movie, is trying to outrun himself and deflecting, and is very good at it. And that charm is actually quite intoxicating, and the movie is designed to be a kind of pleasure in that way. But we obviously have these sort of headwinds of his memories, and what George does, which I find remarkable, is that as people leave him and he's left, without his defenses, as he goes out into the world, into a country that is not his own, he starts to reveal more and more vulnerability by the time that you get to the end. And I mean, I think it's an amazing performance. And the thing is, but the thing is that you're nothing like Jay Kelly. It's just that he's a movie star, and George is a movie star. And it was important, I think, that this audience have a relationship with the actor who played Jay Kelly, so that it's immediately believable. I mean, he also starts as a character in a movie, and then you cut, and now he's an actor playing, this character. But something we always talked about. It's a kind of, he starts as a movie star, and he ends up as just a human being like any of us, and is sort of that process. And I think George does it beautifully, but he won't say that, and he's going to make a joke now to undermine it.
I got the job because Tom Cruise turned it down.
Yeah,
Well, that montage at the end would have looked very different. Laura, I mean, you did start working very young, and you talked about how publicists, managers, these handlers, in a way, raised you, taught you about this industry. And so what was it like to play one of them? I mean, you have this great line, he was our baby, now we have our own baby. Is that kind of reflecting on the arc of that role? Yeah, I'm curious what you brought to that role from your own experiences growing up in this world.
Well, it is true that, when we start young, a group of us find each other and we're kind of raising each other. If we're blessed to have an agent or a publicist or manager who is there with us for the journey, you are there to learn how to hopefully protect each other, and they teach you about boundaries and voice, and especially if you start as a child. But one of those people is to my right, because this was one of my fiercest protectors, teaching me about taking care of myself while also being an actor, because we did a movie together.
We did a very good
40 years ago. I can't believe they're not doing a retrospective.
I'm really hurt
on
that
film.
it's not in there.
Me too. Me too.
Well, tell us about the movie.
It was Grizzly 2.
Yeah. It was amazing.
There was a 1 before that. And they needed a sequel. And it never came out.
True.
We was shot by a Hungarian crew in Budapest, communist Budapest in 1984,
Yeah.
I think. And it was a terrible movie, and we get killed in the first scene. Right?
Yes, we do. But, you know, we
By the
were-
bear? I need to know.
By a bear.
Okay.
Yeah. A bear does show up.
By a shark. She's been drinking already. but they ran out of money. We got stuck in Budapest for a couple of months. We couldn't
Yes.
come home.
Yeah. So when I
For
say
chicken,
like
we're like-
raising each other, literally,
Yeah.
you're there on this journey together, and it was an amazing thing, you know, and is an amazing thing, as I've said to Noah, when you are lucky enough to find family in this life. And the film speaks so beautifully to that, and this amazing relationship that George and Adam in their performances give us. But, you know, as a lucky actor who's, Noah and I say, on our 8th movie together, but it's actually our 3rd-ish. It's our
Well,
2nd.
4th if you include the clip from Blue Velvet and Squid and the Whale.
Thank you. Yes, it's our 4th. So we're counting a clip and a voiceover. But what's incredible to me every time I see a movie of Noah's, and this no exception in terms of finding Liz or any of our characters, is of course it's in the words, but it's the mastery of effortless filmmaking that is something so intangible. And in this movie, with these incredible actors here, that it's so much deeper than an homage to cinema. It's an homage to all of you. It's an homage to what we've placed on cinema to connect to our humanity and to each other, and to do that with effortlessness and vulnerability and kindness and irreverence in all these characters is just mind-blowing to me. And then, of course, being our guide, Linus's guide in the cinematography, and our guide in the performances. And it does become like one organism or one family. You feel like you're all acting together, even though we're all in chapters of this amazing journey George and Noah take us on.
In many ways, it feels like your other movies, Noah, about families. You know, it's a family drama in so many ways. Billy, I mean, you have an incredible part in the film. I mean, first I want to ask Noah, what made you think...
Don't applaud that.
That's right, George.
Don't applaud it.
There we go,
No.
people.
No.
My people.
Well, I want to ask Noah what...
No, can I leave?
No, you cannot. What made you think this guy can read a menu?
Yeah, good question.
Me?
No, that's for Noah.
What did I think?
Yeah, for Noah, yeah. Or I'm asking why, you know, Billy was the perfect fit for the role.
Well, if you could get Billy Crudup in your movie, wouldn't you? You know, I
Come on.
But I mean, Billy can speak to this. When I called him and we were talking about it, and he said, "Well, you know, that's not how I like that method way of getting into his character is not how I do it." And then you can keep going with the story.
Well, yeah, that it's not how I work. It's anathema to how I work. I would call that to be nerdy about acting. I mean, with some of the great actors working today, that's what you would call result-oriented acting, as opposed to storytelling, which is event-oriented acting. So why is that event in there? Why is there that scene in it? And why is my character necessary for that scene to work? So that's how you sort of put together a story. And if there are emotions that are attached to the playing of that scene with the other actors and collaborators, then they come and they go through you, and that kind of renders itself as some sort of authenticity. The idea of playing somebody who's sobbing is just not something I know how to do. And so I talked to, well, I had to learn how to do it. I talked to Noah about it, and I said, well, perhaps he could say something to Jay Kelly like, that's actually not the way that it works, Jay. that's what you misunderstood about acting. And Noah politely listened to me ramble on like I am now. And I noticed after a while, and even George put up with it during the rehearsal. He was like, I heard you got some new stuff coming in. And I did. I had written all sorts of shit down, but it was, like really long. And so there was never an opportunity to put it in rehearsal, but I imagine some of it would work its way into the script. And about 2 or 3 weeks out, I noticed that the script wasn't changing. And so I thought I better fucking figure out method acting real quick.
Well,
I did my best. And when we were doing the actual day, I said to both of them, I said, I have no idea which way this is going to go. So I've got a couple different things planned in case it goes south. And if I start telling some stories that sound personal on camera, it's just what I need to do to sort of put myself into a vulnerable place. So they had to put up with a couple of stories that were personal.
But the take in the movie, I mean, that wasn't the only one that you did it on.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
we
he
did
actually.
this, like,
This
tons
is.
of
I mean, he came in. He was like, I don't know that this is going to work, and then it was like
Boom,
one
boom,
after
boom,
the
boom,
other.
boom.
Yeah.
Well, then I couldn't stop crying once I got home that night. I called my wife and I was like, it went great.
And that's what we call method acting.
the method got you.
And scene.
Well, because the movie is, among other things, about performance and I thought, and that's why it was so important to have. I mean, it's not only the best actors around, but like actors that are so formidable that people know and people like, because the way the movie's structured, it's like everybody kind of comes in, and it's like if it was a play, they would get applause, and that's was by design. And I just loved the idea if you could actually watch somebody act, like reveal acting in front of you. And we see George do it in the beginning of the movie, and then we see Billy do it at the table. And I thought, that, what a pleasure that would be to see in a movie.
Yeah, acting, like that seems very difficult, but you guys did great. Riley, you have these scenes that in many ways are the emotional core of the film with George as his daughter. And there's a couple of these flashback scenes. And I was listening to yesterday's Q&A, and I know that those were shot very interestingly because of the way the sets were constructed. So there's like a classroom attached to a plane. I'd love to hear from you the actual experience of shooting these scenes on set.
Well, the forest scene was pretty straightforward. We were walking through a forest.
But I heard you were doing some hiding, and I mean, give us all the
Yeah,
details.
well, there was a very long track, and I was hiding behind a tree, and George was...
Go through all these different methodologies of how we could make her appear. And then ultimately it was like, well, maybe she just hides behind the tree.
Which is a funny thing, because I don't remember, is it on the page that she appears?
Yeah.
Right. So it's not something you imagine doing practically when you're reading it.
No, or even when you're writing it.
But yeah, it was very funny.
And,
But we did do all the, I mean, like the mirror thing too. I mean, it's too involved probably to explain it all right now, but as George is looking in the mirror and doing his thing, Riley is just standing over in this care center we've attached to the bathroom of the train.
Yeah.
And as the camera goes around and reveals Daisy and her friends running to get on the train, and we come back around to George's reflection, what was a real reflection, we've pulled the mirror out and put in a frame of a mirror. George has ducked under and now is his own reflection in the mirror. So he looks and we think it's a reflection, but it's really George. And so Riley is really just behind him now. And so he sees her in the reflection. So what would be behind him on the train is actually really just behind him. And the camera
I never
goes
could have
past.
answered this question.
The camera goes past. Are you following me? And the camera goes past George to reveal Riley, who starts talking to him while he is doing his lines off camera. We have built a Velcro shirt that he's ripping off that jacket and shirt into his memory shirt, and George reappears in the memory on the other side of the thing, and then we just shot that whole entire scene after that.
That's incredible. But just to follow up on that, Riley. I mean, you play a character who's kind of not real. Like when we see you, we're seeing Jay's memories. It's like his projection a little bit. We don't know if we can trust his memories. So can you talk about kind of embodying that?
I mean, that's interesting. I definitely wasn't thinking of it in that way when I was performing it. I was trying to just perform it as if it were my memory or my experience. So I wasn't really thinking about it as being Jay's perspective on the scene, but I think that ultimately it's it's not a relationship that I particularly relate to in the specificity of it, but ultimately I think it's wishing that your parent were different. And I think that's very relatable, whether it's a parent or any kind of a relationship. And that I guess that was sort of where the emotionality came from, I suppose.
She was also such a pro. I mean, we were that scene with Josh Hamilton, in the shrink scene. Josh and I are just children. We're just giggling through the whole thing, and she's gonna be sad and really crying. And Josh, every time I'd walk off the edge, I'd sit and I just like laughing, and she's just got it together the whole time. And
Really?
we were not
I
helpful.
feel like I was laughing.
You would come laughing at the end, but you'd hold it together in a way that there's no way I could have.
Well, the first thing that we shot with Riley was the two of them in the car, and the cameras, the sort of we sort of did in that scene. In some ways, the focus is not usually where you would be. You usually shoot over one person to and the focus would be on the person in the foreground. But the focus was actually on the person in the foreground, and so Riley was the first side we did, and it was the
Which
first.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
was
no, I
happening.
didn't tell you. And I remember just doing the first take and it's it's quite a quiet scene for you, but just everything is in her face. And I remember the first take, and I was like, that's the whole thing. I mean, and to have an actor who can communicate that is, what a gift. Riley is, it's incredible what she does, I think.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have, unfortunately. So thank you so much.